Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something really fascinating. We're exploring these hidden currents of ancient wisdom, focusing on Hermeticism and how it, maybe surprisingly, connects to some of history's biggest scientific names.
Yeah, names like Isaac Newton, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, the giants.
Exactly. We all know their groundbreaking science.
That's great.
But we're going to look at something else. Their lesser-known fascination with texts like the Emerald Tablet, the Corpus Hermeticum, even alchemical manuscripts.
And these aren't your standard lab reports, are they? They're full of symbolism, hidden layers, really deep philosophical stuff.
Totally. And it's this strange meeting point, isn't it? Between, the mystical and the scientific.
It really is. We're talking core metaphysical ideas here, things like sacred geometry, energy, vibration, consciousness itself, and, how different cultures saw the cosmos. These pop up again and again in these old texts.
Right, which leads to some big questions, doesn't it? Why were these Hermetic writings suppressed for so long? And what exactly drew people like Newton, Tesla, Einstein to them? And I guess the big one for today, how does this ancient stuff connect to modern science? Especially, quantum physics.
It's a deep rabbit hole.
It is. So our mission today, for everyone listening, is to try and unpack these links and maybe see if this ancient wisdom still means something for us, for understanding ourselves and, the universe.
And it changes how you see history, I think. It's less like a straight line of discoveries, more like a tapestry, where these threads of knowledge just keep reappearing in unexpected places.
Yeah, like finding Newton's hidden library or something.
Exactly. Understanding Hermeticism's journey and its pull on these scientific minds, it just gives you a richer picture of how we got here, intellectually speaking.
Okay, let's dig in. Where does Hermeticism actually come from, the historical roots?
Well, the origins seem to lie in that amazing mix of ancient Egyptian and Greek thought. You've got this central figure, Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great Hermes.
Right, heard of him. Legendary figure.
Pretty much legendary, yeah. He's credited with these profound insights into, everything, the universe, how matter transforms, basically, early alchemy, and how consciousness works. And these ideas got written down, mainly in the Corpus Hermeticum and that really cryptic Emerald Tablet. Those are the key texts.
Okay, so what's the core worldview? How did they actually see the universe?
Fundamentally, they saw it as this deeply interconnected, living thing, an organism almost.
Okay.
And the idea was that matter and consciousness aren't really separate. They're just two aspects of the same basic reality. It's a very holistic view. And it's all laid out in the 7 Hermetic principles.
Ah, yes, the 7 principles.
Yeah.
That sounds important. Can you give us a quick rundown, the essentials?
Sure. First up is mentalism. The universe is mental. The core idea, reality is fundamentally mind or consciousness, not just physical stuff.
Mind over matter, literally. Okay.
Pretty much. Second is correspondence. As above, so below. This means patterns repeat on all levels. Microcosm, macrocosm, like a universal blueprint,
Okay, I get that, like fractals.
Exactly like fractals, yeah. Third is vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, so everything is energy, constantly in motion, dynamic.
That one sounds familiar, especially thinking about physics. What are the others?
Number 4 is polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles. Think hot, cold, light, dark. They're not opposites, just ends of the same spectrum.
Right, degrees is the same thing?
Yep. 5th is rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. It's all about cycles, ebb and flow, the natural pulse of things.
Okay.
6th is cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Pretty straightforward. Nothing's random. Everything's linked by causality. A cornerstone of science, too.
Absolutely.
And finally, 7th is gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Now, this isn't necessarily biological sex, but more about active and receptive forces working together everywhere in nature.
Wow, that's quite a system. It feels really comprehensive. So if it was this complete system, why did it get suppressed? You mentioned the Library of Alexandria burning down.
Yeah, that was a huge blow. As Christianity gained power in the Roman Empire, Hermeticism, which kind of blended Egyptian mysticism, Greek philosophy, early astrology, it started looking like heresy.
A threat to the established order.
Exactly. The burning of the library in Alexandria around 391 CE, it was this massive loss of knowledge, and tons of Hermetic texts went up in smoke. But the tradition didn't completely vanish.
It went underground.
It went underground, yeah. Kept alive in secret groups through alchemy, through the Middle Ages, then boom, the Renaissance hits. These texts resurface in Europe, and they have this massive impact on thinkers, including the guys starting what we now call science.
Okay, so that brings us to the church's reaction. Why were they so afraid of this knowledge? Why try so hard to stamp it out?
Well, it boils down to a power struggle, really. A struggle over who controls knowledge and truth. Hermeticism basically said, hey, you can figure out the universe for yourself through inner work, direct experience.
Ah, no middleman needed.
Precisely. No need for the church hierarchy as the sole interpreter. That's a direct challenge if your whole system is built on authority and specific doctrines. It basically empowers the individual.
Right, that makes sense. Were there specific beliefs that really clashed head-on with church teaching?
Oh, definitely. Take divine immanence, the idea that the divine is within each person. That clashes with needing the church for salvation, right?
Yeah, directly.
And some Hermetic texts hinted at things like reincarnation, the soul evolving over many lives. That was totally against the Christian idea of one life, then judgment.
Okay, those are major differences. Anything else?
Well, there was the emphasis on the feminine principle, seeing masculine and feminine forces as equally important. That didn't sit well with the church's, let's say, male-dominated structure at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Hermeticism was more open to pluralistic truth, the idea that different religions might just be different paths to the same ultimate reality. The church, of course, taught it had the only truth.
So it wasn't just theology. It was about how you find truth.
Absolutely. Hermeticism pointed towards reason, observation, even experiment, not just faith as defined by the church. This way of thinking, it helped lay the groundwork for the scientific revolution. It was a shift in power from clergy to eventually scientists. The church probably saw that coming.
A fascinating power play. Okay, let's shift to those scientific giants. Isaac Newton. We learned about gravity, laws of motion. But what's this hidden Hermetic side?
This is where it gets really wild. Newton, the icon of rationality, right?
Yeah.
Turns out, if you look at his private papers, his library, he spent a massive amount of time, maybe even more time than on physics, studying alchemy and mystical texts.
No way. Seriously.
Seriously, his library was packed with this stuff. His notebooks, they're full of notes, translations, detailed analyses of things like the Emerald Tablet. We now know he spent decades trying to crack the secrets of the Philosopher's Stone, really digging into Hermetic ideas about transforming matter.
That completely changes the picture of Newton. So was this just a side hobby, or did it actually leak into his famous scientific work?
More and more scholars think it was deeply intertwined. It looks like his theory of universal gravitation wasn't just math and observation. It seems heavily inspired by Hermetic concepts. Things like sympathy between objects or correspondence, this idea of a universal attractive force.
Like action and reaction.
Exactly. That has strong echoes of as above, so below, doesn't it? The idea of forces mirroring each other across the cosmos. It's like Hermeticism gave him a framework, a conceptual toolbox to think about gravity.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. But why keep it secret if it was so important to his thinking?
Well, think about 17th century England. Being into alchemy and Hermeticism, that was risky business. Could get you branded a heretic, damage your reputation, especially within the scientific community like the Royal Society.
The politics of science, even back then.
Absolutely. So, to protect his standing, he likely kept these unscientific influences quiet in his published work. It created this hidden history we're only now really uncovering, a real tension between the new science and the old wisdom.
Incredible. Okay, fast forward a bit. Nikola Tesla. Visionary inventor, AC current, all that. But you mentioned ancient vibration theory. How does Hermeticism play into his work?
Tesla's another fascinating case. He often hinted at less conventional inspirations, didn't he? Talked about an ancient vibration theory, believed deeply in this pervasive cosmic energy field.
The ether. Right, he was big on the ether.
Yes, ether.
Yeah.
He believed you could tap into this universal energy field using the right frequencies. And that lines up almost perfectly with the Hermetic principle of vibration. Everything vibrates. He seemed to just get that the universe was fundamentally energy.
So his belief in the ether, it wasn't purely a scientific hypothesis for him. It had deeper roots.
It certainly seems that way. Think about his Wardenclyffe Tower project, the world wireless system, to send energy globally without wires. The theory behind it, using the Earth itself as a conductor, tapping into resonance, it really echoes Hermetic ideas about energy transmission and influencing matter through vibration and frequency.
Did he ever explicitly say, I rid the corpus hermeticum?
Right.
Or acknowledge these influences directly?
Direct quotes mentioning specific Hermetic texts are rare in what's publicly available, but he did mention drawing inspiration from studying ancient Egyptian and Indian texts, places deeply connected to Hermetic origins.
Right.
Plus, and this is a big point, after he died, the government confiscated a lot of his papers. So we might not even have the full picture of his sources and connections, but the parallels in his core ideas, especially about vibration, they're pretty striking.
Very intriguing. Okay, and then there's Einstein. Theory of relativity, EMCA arrow. How could he possibly connect to this ancient stuff? You mentioned his search for cosmic wholeness.
Yeah, on the surface, Einstein seems purely physics and math. But think about his lifelong obsession, finding a unified field theory, a single framework to explain all the fundamental forces.
The theory of everything. He never quite got there.
He didn't, but that very quest for unification, for cosmic wholeness, it deeply resonates with the core Hermetic idea of a single, interconnected, unified universe. Monism, basically.
And his famous line, God does not play dice.
Exactly. That reflects his gut feeling that there's an underlying order, a harmony in the cosmos, which is totally in line with Hermetic ideas about universal laws governing everything.
Did Einstein have any known direct contact with these traditions?
Direct proof of him reading Hermetic texts is thin, but we know he interacted with people and ideas linked to Kabbalah, which absorbed a lot of Hermetic thought, especially during the Renaissance.
Okay.
And he also corresponded with researchers looking into psychical phenomena. It suggests he had a mind open to exploring connections between consciousness and the physical world, maybe beyond the standard physics of his day.
So that quest for a unified theory, it could almost be seen as a modern scientific echo of that ancient Hermetic drive for oneness.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's like Einstein, using the tools of modern science, was intuitively reaching for a truth articulated centuries earlier in a different language, you know? It makes you wonder if certain core ideas about reality are just perennial. We keep rediscovering them.
It really makes you think. Let's go back to those 7 principles again. You said they have surprising parallels in modern science. Can we walk through a few more of those connections?
Absolutely. It's really quite startling when you put them side by side. Take mentalism, the universe is mental. Sounds philosophical, right? But then you look at the observer effect in quantum physics.
Where observing changes the outcome.
Exactly. The very act of conscious observation seems to influence quantum reality. It hints that consciousness isn't just a bystander, it might be fundamental, which is pretty much what mentalism says.
That's a big one. What about correspondence as above, so below?
We mentioned fractals earlier, and that's a perfect example. Scale invariance in physics. You see the same basic patterns repeating everywhere: branching trees, river deltas, lung structure, galaxy clusters.
The universe's signature, repeating itself.
Kind of, yeah. The microcosm reflecting the macrocosm, just like the principle says.
And vibration, the one Tesla was so tuned into.
Nothing rests, everything vibrates. Well, quantum field theory, our best model right now, basically says reality is vibrating energy fields. Not solid bits, but constant fluctuations. Ancient intuition meeting cutting-edge physics.
It's uncanny.
Yeah.
What about polarity and rhythm?
Polarity, everything is dual. You see that in physics everywhere. Positive and negative charge, matter and antimatter. Symmetry principles are fundamental.
2 sides of the same coin.
Right. And rhythm, everything flows out and in. Think about wave theory in physics or all the biological cycles. Circadian rhythms, sleep-wake cycles, it's all pulses and flows.
Okay, and the last 2, cause and effect and gender.
Cause and effect, well, that's the bedrock of all science, isn't it? Seeking causes for effects.
Can't argue with that one.
And gender, the masculine and feminine principles, you can see that metaphorically in physics too. Like the interplay between active forces and the fields or particles that mediate them. It's about balance, interaction.
It's a really compelling list of parallels. It doesn't feel like coincidence. You also mentioned Hermeticism as an experimental tradition. What did you mean by that?
Well, we tend to think of ancient wisdom as just philosophy, right? But Hermeticism, especially through alchemy, was hands-on.
Like actual experiments?
Yeah. Early alchemists were in labs, mixing things, observing reactions, trying to transform substances. They were experimenting, trying to verify ideas through direct interaction with the material world. Then the Renaissance natural philosophers picked up on that.
So they weren't just sitting around thinking deep thoughts.
Not entirely. And you can see a line maybe from that tradition to Newton doing his optical experiments, or Tesla with his electrical engineering marvels, even Einstein's thought experiments. They're all ways of probing reality, manipulating matter and energy to figure out how it works.
It reframes magic almost, like early experimental science.
Exactly. What looked like magic trying to cause transformations, understand hidden forces, was in many ways the ancestor of systematic experimentation. Historians of science are really starting to appreciate alchemy's role in developing scientific methods.
This whole conversation is really connecting dots. Okay, let's bring it right up to today. Quantum era resonances. How is the very latest science sort of bumping up against these ancient Hermetic ideas again?
This is where it gets maybe even weirder and more exciting. Quantum physics keeps throwing up results that sound strangely familiar if you know Hermeticism.
Like the observer effect we talked about.
Right, linking mind and matter. But also quantum entanglement. Particles linked instantly across vast distances. Einstein hated it. Spooky action at a distance.
But it's real. It's been proven.
It's been proven, yeah.
Yeah.
And it strangely echoes Hermetic ideas of correspondence, resonance, deep connection across space.
Oh, what else?
Well, there's the zero-point energy field concept in quantum physics, this idea of a massive underlying energy sea in the vacuum of space. It sounds a lot like Tesla's cosmic energy, or the Hermetic idea of a universal life force, an energetic background to everything.
Yeah.
And then there's the holographic principle. This theoretical idea that all the info in a volume of space might be encoded on its boundary, like a hologram.
Which sounds loud.
Like the Hermetic idea, the part contains the whole. The idea that the whole universe is reflected in every piece of it.
It's like science is circling back, finding mathematical or experimental language for these really old intuitions.
It feels that way sometimes, and it's not just a few people saying this. Major physicists, David Bohm, Wolfgang Pauli, John Wheeler, they all saw and wrote about these weird parallels between quantum mechanics and mystical traditions, including Hermeticism.
They weren't afraid to explore the philosophical side.
You know, they saw that their physics was pushing them into these deeper questions, just like Newton, Tesla, and Einstein were pushed maybe by their own explorations.
And you mentioned consciousness science earlier. How does that fit?
For ages, science mostly ignored consciousness or saw it as just a brain side effect. But now, there's a real shift. Neuroscience, quantum biology. Researchers are seriously asking if consciousness might be fundamental. Not just emergent, but actually woven into the fabric of reality.
Which is pure Hermeticism, almost.
It aligns incredibly well, yeah.
Yeah.
You've got things like the Global Consciousness Project at Princeton, research at IONS, theories about quantum consciousness. They're all probing that deep link between mind and matter that Hermeticism talked about millennia ago.
It really feels like that old divide between science and spirituality might be blurring, maybe even starting to heal. And hey, if you're finding this deep dive interesting, definitely hit that subscribe button on our channel so you don't miss out on future explorations like this.
That's a really important point, I think. This whole journey of Hermetic ideas from Egypt and Greece through suppression influencing early science, now resonating with quantum physics, it suggests history isn't neat boxes, it's interconnected.
A continuous thread.
Yeah, and maybe that integrated view that Newton, Tesla, Einstein seem to be reaching for, blending scientific rigor with deeper wisdom, maybe that's becoming possible again. This holistic perspective, it's core to Hermeticism, and maybe it offers better ways to tackle our modern complex problems.
Beyond just information.
Exactly. Hermeticism reminds us that knowledge isn't just about collecting facts, it's about personal transformation, understanding our place in the big picture.
That is a powerful thought to wrap up on. The idea that Einstein's unified theory, the one he searched for his whole life, trying to connect matter and consciousness. Maybe the seeds of it were already there, in these ancient texts hidden away. It definitely invites us to rethink what we know, doesn't it?
It really does.
Thank you so much for taking this journey with me today. And to everyone listening, if this exploration sparked your curiosity, please do subscribe for more deep dives into these kinds of mind-expanding topics.
You know, what really strikes me is just the sheer persistence of these ideas. Across centuries, cultures, suppression, they keep bubbling up. It suggests a really fundamental human quest to understand it all, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Makes you wonder what else is out there waiting to be rediscovered. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning.